We are.
Welcome. Welcome to Get Unstuck. This is our Sales Enablement edition. So I am Kiara. I'm the co-founder of Startup ROI. We have an event called Get Unstuck that we do just about every week. And generally, it is very conversational, Q&A. It's very intimate, where people ask questions directly. But today, or bi-weekly, we actually have specific topic focusing, and then we also have special guests. But today, you guys get the privilege of just myself, my awesome colleague, Cheryl, and we are talking all about sales. Cheryl, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Cheryl Parks. I am more or less one of the sales advisors here. We all are very sales focused, but I'll get into my background shortly. But at the end of the day, I'm here for sales enablement, sales growth, sales acceleration, really. And for the most part, I'm an accelerator coach that's been around for 28 years, which is hard to believe. So when we get into our stories, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I'm excited to be here and work with the team at Startup ROI. It's phenomenal.
Yes. Looks like someone wants to join the call. Mayrood, I'm sorry, I think I just butchered your name. Today isn't that type of joining. So I'd like for you to hop on our live for LinkedIn, and ask your questions in the chat there. But you can join our Zoom call next week and ask questions along with us, if that makes sense. Yeah. Sorry, I hope it makes sense for you. But go and ask some questions on LinkedIn. I'm looking.
Perfect.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Okay, so let me make sure I'm watching the chat just so I can make certain I don't miss anything. Okay. Yeah, so I feel like I talk so much on these calls. I really want to hear a lot from you, Cheryl. So just by way of just introduction, guys, we're going to dive into sales, but in my mind, Cheryl is all about sales. Yeah. So I have questions that I'd love to hear your response to for our audience.
Yeah.
And okay. All right. So sorry, I was just double checking, making sure I could see those questions.
No worries.
So Cheryl, how did you get started in sales, and what led you to SaaS and that whole thing?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. So to give you this, I'm going to have to give you the whole story, and I'll do it I'll try to give you the collapse version. But I grew up the shyest girl in the room. We lived on the East Coast. I was fairly shy then. My father decided to become an entrepreneur, which is where I get this from. And we moved to California, and I went underground, like in my room for a year. Didn't want to ring the bell on the bus to get off the bus, would just ride to the next stop. Literally would talk people out of saying they knew me from somewhere. I'd be like, no, I don't think so. Like, I was crazy shy. Okay. So my father was a Xerox executive, and he provided a pretty cool life where we traveled and got exposed to a lot of things. And I was like, yeah, this looks kind of cool. Like, we're, doing vacations. And so I didn't realize, though, that sales and shyest girl in the room don't really go together. So I jump into the sales role and realize that, like, wow, I'm going to have to do something to step into it. And so I took myself through a lot of mindset training, mindset strengthening. I just did things every day to put myself in my outside my comfort zone and grow to become the person I wanted to be. People ask me, like, am I still shy? Yeah, I'm still shy. There are times that I'm like not wanting to show up. And I'm like, no, you're going to show up for yourself. So how I got into SaaS was really just like, I have to say, it's just like the moon, the sun, and the stars aligned. And I ended up interviewing for a .com company that will tell you how long I've been in sales, back in the .com boom in the late 90s. And taking that position changed the trajectory of my sales career, because at that time, SaaS was just coming on the scene. I'll say much like AI, although AI has been on the scene for a while now, but just coming on the scene. And I love selling services. When you sell services, you're only as good as like the last time, right? Because, you just have to show up, right? So SaaS for me was a way. I sold SaaS for a Fortune 750 company called Iron Mountain. They're really an information management company, but I sold a SaaS product that was connected to a service in the back end. The long and short of it is, if you've ever been in a Wells Fargo bank or T-Mobile or Verizon Wireless, all the materials that put those branches together are stored somewhere. They are inventoried and they are shipped to the tens of thousands of locations. I sold that service to like Starbucks and Verizon and Wells Fargo, so that because we're an information management company, you're getting the data on the back end, but we actually had the SaaS product for ordering, inventory management, and the service of distributing it around the world. So that's the short version of how I got to it. It was really via the .com scenario. And then I went to a Fortune 750 and I was there for about 12 years. And I launched my practice almost 4 years ago, which is really amazing to say. So when the Fortune 750 and I divorced, they divorced me. I took a nice package, took some time. I took coding classes. I just really wanted to see, is there something else I want to do? God bless the coders. I am not a coder. Kiara, I know. God bless y'all. Okay. Yeah. Because it just wasn't working. And it was a great group. I was in an incubator of sorts, but I did lots of things to just explore. And I just realized that at my heart and my soul, I like solving problems for people. So that's where that comes from, but that's how I got here. And right now I work with corporates, and I also work with individual business owners to help support them serving corporates. And for the most part, I serve in accelerators, just like Startup ROI.
Beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. My co-founder, Paul, just arrived as well, guys. Don't want to not acknowledge him.
Hey, how's everyone?
Excellent.
Doing great. Awesome. Cheryl is telling us her awesome story before we dive into sales questions and things like that. So she just basically described how her company got started, how she kind of went on this very long journey. And I am just so curious about so you figured out basically, well, first off, let me just let everyone know, Cheryl says she is shy, and I've never noticed not one shy moment. And that's why I think she's awesome at sales because she sells herself so well. I mean, I don't know how that sounds. If it sounds bad, but it doesn't in my head. I'm like, you present yourself well. I'd never know that you were shy. So my question is, what would you say is your sales superpower? What's the thing that you can do it in your sleep?
I'm going to say it's two things. So because I was shy and I had an introvert personality for a long period of time, my listening skills, I think, are what has distinguished me throughout my entire career. I'm an active listener. I'm always looking for what's really motivating the question or the comment, but not from an accusatory standpoint, but literally I want to understand better so that I can be better. So that would be the one part of it. And then the other side of it, I would have to say is I love problem solving and I like people to get an outcome, right? So you talk about actionable steps. and the person or the group goes out and they do it, and they come back and they say, I'm like I call myself a transformation junkie. Like, I'm an outcome driven. I just want to see the outcome. And so just knowing that certain deals wouldn't have happened if I didn't pick the phone up, right? If I didn't go to the meeting, if I didn't send the email that was uncomfortable, or if I didn't speak up in the meeting. I've done that before, super uncomfortable meeting of 12 people. And I've actually stopped the meeting because I could clearly see the buying team was not on board. And so we were proceeding, and I'm like, I can look at them and see we're not even in the right ballpark. So can we just take a time out? And I think it's just being human, right? I mean, being a better human. We've talked about this as a team. Just really actively listening and understanding what people need to solve their problem.
That is a nugget for the century. Listening, just listening. I love that so much. Oh, well, before we dive in, I want to make sure that, Paul, you're able to introduce yourself to our audience. Would you like to jump on and just introduce yourself?
Yeah. So my name is Paul Claxton. You will find me on LinkedIn as an AI venture capitalist, but there's a story behind that to how I got to be an AI venture capitalist. And when I decided to make the leap into entrepreneurship, but before that, I was also in corporate for six and a half years. And I gained enough experience that gave me the really, kind of gave me the diverse confidence to say, okay, I know about a lot of different verticals and business functions and autonomous roles within like an operation. So I can apply that in entrepreneurship. And then before that, I was a U.S. Marine for 10 years. I was in infantry, and towards the end of my career, I ran the Command Operation and Intelligence Center, which is where I got first exposure to, next gen technology. Back then, that was like 2007. So what we would call next gen back then, we would probably call antiquated technology today. But that's how it started, and that's how I got to where I am today.
Paul, you also had a lot of sales experience as well, right? In your journey. If you want to mention any of that.
Sales is an interesting world. In the world of startups and kind of B2B businesses and enterprise level solutions, it's really all about relationships. And what I realized a long time ago is that, there's a book by Jim Blossingen called The Age of the Consumer. And really, what sales has become is, and that's how you build relationships. But before, it used to be kind of like, sales was like, your sales representative would come and pitch you and everyone else in his or her region, right? And that was the only person that you had access to back in the 80s and the 90s. That was really the only person that you had access to determine, to gather intel on a product, or to determine, what products were out there, or if a product was a good fit for you. So it was very sales influence. But today, sales is more customer influence. So nobody wants to be sold to. Everybody knows when they're being sold to. And that's why building relationships and adding relevant value is so important. So yes, I do have a sales and marketing background. On kind of more of the sales influence side of things, I've kind of done it all in sales. I used to sell vacuum cleaners, and a lot of interesting stories there, going into people's homes and doing a 3-hour presentation on why this $4,000 vacuum cleaner, why you need it. And because your home is dirty and you need it, and you need to spend this money, right? So, but even then, it's really about relating to the person that you're trying to offer the solution or the product to. So it's a what I've learned about sales is it's really not about you. It's not about your product, but it is about, as Cheryl said, being a good listener, and really kind of understanding, the immediate psychology of the person that you're talking to, how they think, are they an alpha person, or are they more of a beta introvert? Those are the things that, you look at, and then you pick up on cues and tones and signals. Are they excited? Are they monotonous? So that's kind of how I view sales. Does that kind of help?
Yeah, that's good stuff. So I want to dive in. Well, first off, I need to say something about myself because I haven't said anything. And then I think that we should just dive into how you get started marketing your early stage product, or not marketing, sorry, gaining an online presence, and then how to begin getting those initial sales. We really want to make it more practical for you guys, especially if that's not your strength. So for me, I kind of threw myself into the jungle of entrepreneurship without really having a ton of sales experience. I just knew that I was very personable, that in conversations, I had worked at a corporate company at 9 to 5, and I quickly advanced through the ranks because I'm very administrative. When I hear a problem, it's not difficult for me to come up with a whole plan for how to execute it. And I quickly would take that upon myself. So I knew that I had a strength of just being personable, being attentive, and being administrative. And it just soon became clear to me that I was going to reach my capacity of growth within this atmosphere, that I needed more room to grow. And there was only so many raises they could give me. So I left. And I launched into beginning a web agency with my self-taught website development skills that I had learned. And I began kind of freelancing on my own. Then I recruited people to become entrepreneurs. Becoming an entrepreneur is a wild jump. And I don't know how I was able to say, hey, you're doing this. I noticed this skill that you have. Why don't you be an entrepreneur? Let me show you how. And it was just person after person. I was having meetings in my living room, just showing them what they could do. And with that, I thought, okay, this is an agency. I can begin an agency. And that kind of progressed. And I stumbled into one thing after the other. And here I am, guys. Here I am. If you ever want to know more details about that journey, and just what was involved in the beginning, feel free to ask me. It was a lot of marketing, a lot of branding that I learned and was able to do. A lot of go-to-market things. I quickly began figuring out that I liked working with startups more than I liked doing the actual services, because I was recruiting and showing these people how to build companies to become a part of my agency. So I figured out I actually like helping them more than I like doing the other things. So feel free to ask me questions about that anytime. But we have given tons of intros, and I want to dive into some practical things. Just checking really quick for questions, making sure there aren't any that I've missed. Okay, I don't see any. All right. So when it comes to online let's paint this story. So you're beginning your product, and I'm assuming that you are maybe beta testing phase, maybe you're you're potentially trying to find pilots, just trying to start sales conversations around this thing that you're building. So that is the audience that I'm believing that we're speaking to. Now, we can also speak to you based upon the things that we just said. Once you get beyond that point and you are now looking to kind of ramp up those sales, you've gotten your first few and you are now needing to take it to another level. We can also speak to those guys and would love to have more conversations on that. But today I'm speaking to the early people. So establishing an online position, I quickly wrote down 4 things right before this call just to make sure that I highlighted them. So number 1, you have to, and this is assuming you've discovered who your ICP is, you've identified who your ideal customer is, but you need to find them. After that, you need to find your audience and find your place of focus. Where are you going to communicate to them? Then you need to understand, and this comes with the superpower of listening, you need to understand how your audience prefers to be communicated to, so that it's not difficult for you to get your message in front of them over and over again, okay? So you need to understand how. And then the third part is begin educating your market. So you're building this thing, no one really knows what it is, it's new, maybe they know other things that may exist in the world that are similar, but they don't know what you're building, they don't know what you're about. So you need to figure out what you need to talk to them, what topics you need to talk to them about that would attract them to what you're building, and then that would help them feel more informed as they become a potential buyer. And the fourth thing is you need to execute a calculated sales motion. So execute calculated sales motions and then iterate. You're at the beginning. It's totally okay if it's not flawless. You just need to iterate until you feel like you are perfecting your process. And once you get those things in place, you can begin revving things up. So I'd say, let's break those things down. And I'd love to hear from Cheryl. Go for it.
I love those 4 topics, specifically the last one, and there's a reason for it, but I'll kind of get to that throughout our conversation. So one of the things that you mentioned in the beginning, we'll just start from the top, right? It's literally understanding, your ICP, defining and identifying who they are, what are their problems, because as Paul mentioned, it is a buyer-centric market now. And I think I just read a stat that said buyers spend 5 to 17% of their time evaluating with a sales, I call them sales-focused leaders, right? Because you could be the CEO, you could be any leader in your company that is handling lots of other things, but you are sales-focused as well. So 5 to 17% of their time looking to evaluate what it is they need. That's across the board. So if they're looking at 3 people, like how are you going to spend your 5% of that time? If they're looking at 30 days to evaluate, you might get an hour and a half. So they're doing so much more of the work up front. So you have to understand that. A key question, and I tell this to everyone that will listen, a key question you can ask when you're just in the beginning stages of understanding what people are looking for is what has surprised you in your research so far? And the reason for that is we all research. We all go, if you're going to dinner, the first thing we do, we go to our phone, we look for restaurants, we go to the pictures, we go to the reviews, right? We all do our own research. So what has surprised you in the research that you're doing or you've done? That's one of the things that will let you know how far down the education process they are. It'll just flag you right away because they'll either say, nothing, we just started, or I can't believe how many options there are, or the options don't give us what we need. We need a full solution. And all we see out here is splintered solutions, right? So now you have a sense of like what it is they're having a challenge with. So I'll pause there and see if you want to jump in with anything, Kiara. Otherwise, I can talk about sales all day. So
I mean, you can keep going. That is a really good point.
yeah. So that question for me, it just does it. It starts the conversation.
Yeah. Okay. Keep going. Maybe so they figured out, they find out, okay, this is something that I can hone in on. What would you say is the next step? This is my first step for kind of really, well, first you need to validate. If it's an assumption, you need to validate it.
Yep.
But what would you say would be the first step of that?
So the first step after validating their problem and that your solution fits their problem. So to what Paul mentioned about the way sales was set up, your goal is not to sell someone something. Your goal is to actually listen, learn, and understand their problems, what the priorities are in their problem, and then see where your solution overlaps, fits directly, aligns with the problem they're trying to solve. And I think traditionally, as Paul mentioned, it used to be the only intel you could get is to have a salesperson come and talk to you. Buyers already have a lot of that information. So your goal is the most important thing you can do is listen to understand their challenges, problems, and their priorities, right? Because you want to go with the top priority, not the bottom priority. So we want to understand, like, what are they willing to transact on, right? That's probably number one. If you're starting near bottom and you've got the least valuable point, they're likely not willing to transact on that. And when I say transact, build a relationship, right? Because we're relationship builders, not transactional salespeople. So that would be one thing, is understanding where the value points are. And you also want to look and see, like, what is it? If they do nothing at all, what does that mean to them, right? Is there a way to quantify that? That's called the status quo. If they make a decision to do part of I've lost a deal. I'm going to say this really quickly because it stays with me. I lost a deal with Verizon Wireless years ago. It was a multi-million-dollar deal. I lost it by mills of a cent. And that is because the solution we proposed was a full solution, and they didn't want to take a major jump. They wanted to take a shorter step, right? So the person, the team member or the team that actually won the deal, they gave them options and they gave them a phased approach. And that was safer for them versus taking the big comprehensive sale, comprehensive buy. So that one haunts me because it was mills of a cent. They have that many transactions to where mills of a cent is significant dollars, right? It could be millions of dollars to them. So you want to make sure that you're understanding what their buying acumen looks like, right? Here's another good question. How have you made decisions like this one in the past, right? So it's going to be different in the more recent years. I don't want to say after COVID, but trying not to go there. But it's going to be different in these last 2 years than it might have been pre-2020. But asking that question lets you know. They'll say something like, oh, we need to bring a team in. We need to all kind of, it's a group buy, right? Or I make the decision and then I just get sign off from my manager, right? Or my senior vice president, right? So you'll start to understand how they make similar buying decisions when you're in the room talking to them about your solution. So that's another thing that I would incorporate into your sales conversation. It'll give you a sense of, as Paul mentioned, the buyer psychology and what their decision-making and evaluation process looks like. I'm
loving this so much. And I hope that everyone watching is taking some notes, because we do evaluation sessions prior to a startup actually joining our Accelerator. And a lot of the early companies that I speak to have not done this thorough of, this thorough of research. You haven't looked into who your buyer is, what what they're expecting of you, what they value. That is market research. That is really what it is. It's not just Ham, Sam, and Psalm that you can put in a spreadsheet and it looks really good, because yes, you can point to that data, but can you speak to that data? Can you actually practically use it to advance your business? Probably not. I mean, and even in conversations when, and I'm just going to mention this, I know we're not talking about pitching to someone, but when you pitch to someone who has an expectation of you to know all the ins and outs of your business, and you say, here's my Tam Sam phone, and it looks really great, but they start poking and asking questions, you're not ready, friend. You're not ready, friend. So I'd say not only taking this approach, just take this approach in, this is how I build a business. Think about, I'm not building just a product, I am building a lasting business, and approach it this way, be calculated this way. This is why one of the very first things that I say to people that join our accelerator is, how many customers have you spoken to? Mm-hmm. Or how many potential ones? How many interviews have you had with them? And I don't always get the best reaction to that, because people want sales right away, and they're not thinking about having a casual conversation with a customer. But how else do you know how to sell? And how else can we help you advance that if you don't know those things? So I'm loving this. I'm loving this a lot. So now we've talked about kind of understanding your buyer, understanding how to maybe educate them, understanding what actually is valuable to them, figuring that out. I'm really wanting us to get very practical. So okay. There's likely a lot of methods that you can take in actually discovering these things. As I just mentioned, you can have some discovery conversations. What are some things, Cheryl, that you found to be helpful?
In terms of having the conversations, the types of conversations, that kind of thing, mm-hmm. I would always tell people to start with your warm network. And I would also add to that, whatever conversations you're having, try to standardize it, right? So, if you're talking about one topic over here and then another, and it's just all this qualifiable stuff, it's like you want to quantify, before I talk to you about this, what was your thought? And after I talk to you about it, what was your thought? Where does it rank in priority on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being top priority, 1 being not a priority? So if you're asking those questions, you're starting to get kind of the common thread, right? If you see that everyone says this is not a priority, sometimes it could be the way you're positioned, but other times it could be the way your solution's developed. And so you'll start to, that's kind of why sales is so much fun, because there's some complexities to it. There are layers to this thing, as they say. And that's why you want to have standardization, so you can start to understand what the complexities look like. And you can start to break them apart and really understand in an objective way how you can make it better. Because we know that there are babies, our solutions, our businesses are our babies. So that's why you want to create the objective and standardization for it. Start with your warm network, trickle out from there. Don't stay too comfortable, right? You want to make sure that you're out there having conversations and paying attention to what language, what communication lands. You will notice that when you're talking to people, their eyes will either glaze over, or because maybe it takes too long to say what you have to say, or it could be that you get this, like, I don't understand at all what you're talking about. Or you see people's eyes light up. They're like, oh my gosh, if I had that, right? If I had that, it would be would make my life easier, right? So pay attention to the signs as well. I mean, Paul alluded to it, but it's the buyer psychology in terms of what motivates them to be excited about something, but not only be excited, but be willing to transact on it. Yeah, that's the other key part is things can excite people, but they're not interested in putting anything behind it. They, maybe they want to watch you for a while, right? I'm going to give a third actionable tip, right, in your sales conversation. So what the tip is, it becomes a scenario where you're talking to someone and you want to make sure that what you're asking them, like you find out where the value lies, right? So I had a senior vice president ask me once, I was working on another $1 million deal for Sky Vodka. I like brands that are recognizable, as you can tell. And he said, I like vodka too. So he said to me at a conference, would they buy it if it was a penny? And I hesitated. And he said, there it is. Because, right, that lets you know you don't have the solution down, right? So if the solution's not dialed in, you can't really even have the conversation around the investment at all. So you want to make sure your solution's dialed in. So, really having that conversation with yourself and others, like, would you buy this if it was a penny? And if you get any type of that lets you know it's not a priority for them. So I blinked and he noticed it. I think back to that conversation and I'm like, yeah, you blinked. You were like, and I thought that was, and I didn't end up getting that deal, by the way. So just FYI, they stayed with their incumbent. And again, that's the status quo. It was a safer decision because it was a highly visible decision in their organization. And they had already made one earlier in the year that was a disaster, right? So I probably should not have said that much. This is 10 years ago, but I just realized I mentioned who it was. Yeah.
Okay, well, everyone ignore that.
It's a long time ago. Yeah, decades ago.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I have like twofold questions, I think. So, or maybe this is more of just a point. So you guys we're talking to you in the stage of you are early, you're seeking out your first customers, and you're really just getting in front of them. So it could be, now you don't have to solve all of their problems at once. So don't immediately get overwhelmed when approaching your market. You really only need to solve one problem well, just one problem. So now you are in the discovery phase, let's say, and you may not necessarily know exactly which of the problems your solution, the product that you're building is going to solve, and you have a list. Okay. The worst thing that you can do in a sales conversation is give that list. And say, hey, here it is, all of the things. They may be, nodding their head, but really you're losing them. They don't know, it's not relating to them, it's not resonating with them. So rather than that, what you want to do is a little preparation for each call. So take a dive. If you found them on LinkedIn, look at their LinkedIn profile. So I will look at the profile, then I'll go to the company from the profile page, then I'll go to the profile, to the company, the website. I'll look at, if you use LinkedIn Sales Navigator, I'll look at their signals, all of the things that have happened recently. Look at the articles that they've written. Look at if LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a really powerful tool, because you can also see, just depending upon what your product is this is something going to affect this problem? So maybe if it's something to do with employees. If they are having a high turnover rate, then that is a very, very painful problem for them. So that's something that you can mention very quickly in the conversation, and it would draw their attention, especially if their position is related to that particular issue. If they are hiring a bunch of people, that's something else that you could make note of. If they are, opening up a new department for something, then that is something that you can pay attention to. So try to find the point, or at least a couple of points that you can make very early in the conversation that would immediately grasp their attention. And then when it comes time for you to, after you've listened and you just validated in your mind, hey, I'm on the right track, then have already laid out the one thing from your list that you're actually going to present to them. This is my thought around this, and make it conversational. This is my thought around this, my methodology around this. This is the research that I've done and what I found. Does this resonate with you? Come back again with the question. Is this something that you're finding as well? And let them say yes. Let them give you that affirmative, oh, this does make sense. And then now they're starting to think. And then you say, okay, now it depends. It depends on where you're at. If you are ready for a sale, if it seems like, okay, this is it, then don't miss the opportunity. Make the sale. Can we go for it? Can we see how we can move this forward? Let's try and close something. But if not, what you want to do is say, let's have a follow-up. Let's schedule this follow-up. Let's invite whomever else needs to be there. And let's have a follow-up. And that follow-up conversation is even a deeper dive. It's a deeper dive into the things that you just mentioned. Give them the opportunity to go more into detail about their problem and make sure that you're connecting your solution in a pain. And then see if they ask you how. Now, I know that you guys are early. If they ask you how you are going to do something, you need to have a plan. You need to have an onboarding plan. You need to say, okay, this is what we are going to do. And you need to be able to tell them in very clear steps on that call. Because if you don't seem like you know how you're going to deploy your product, it seems like you're fully prepared to waste their time. And they're not going to do that, especially being that you're so early. So you have to come across as very professional, have your plan laid out, and explain to them the process, explain to them the result. What is the result that you are looking for immediately once you deploy your solution at their place of business? And I also realize that I'm speaking a lot to B2B, of a B2B scenario, which I like B2B, just to be honest. So I know that I'm speaking a lot of a B2B scenario, but let's cater a little bit to B2C. Do you have any points on that, Cheryl?
Yeah, I will tell you that, my background is significantly B2B, but what I also will say is B2B and B2C are coming together more and more and more, like every year. And anything that you read is going to tell you that the B2B scenario is there are humans in these organizations, right? And they have their own experiences, past successes and challenges, and they make decisions based on that, whether they're in a group or individually. Those experiences are going to impact their decisions. B2C wise, right? So now you're talking to the decision maker, or sometimes there's one other decision maker or an influencer in their lives. It's similar, but there's a tendency, you've got to talk to more people, right? Because now you're dealing with like individuals that have their own experiences. and they've got influencers in their space as well. So it literally is always a matter of really just asking the right questions, listening to the answers, and understanding how you can gain traction by creating I think it used to be called critical mass, right? So you want to create a critical mass if you're over on the consumer side, so that you're not what I call chasing cats. You're not running around trying to kind of corral like tens of thousands of people. Like, where's the critical mass? Where's the priority? Where are the solutions? What bridge have you created between the problem and your solution? To your point, Kiara, around not giving them the a la carte list that's like, pick one. Like, we need to figure out what the problem is and then create a bridge that shows that your solution can actually, is actually aligned or could be aligned. And then the final piece I'll say, again, to kind of tailspin on what you said, you have to be a leader and a student in every moment, right? So that's another thing. It's really important for you to lead conversation and lead like showing that you can demonstrate that you understand the problem, you have a solution, all of these things, but at the same time, you have to be a student. So when the conversation takes a quick detour, it's like, wait a minute, I've got to learn what we're talking about here. Because I thought that's a blind spot. I thought we were over here, but this is a detour. And things happen all day, every day, consumer or business professional. Everyone's dealing with things that are going on every day. So it's just understanding that, having some empathy for it, but then being that leader and student and understanding that you're there to support and help them. And not, again, as Paul said, people don't like to be sold. They like to be supported in their buying process.
Such a good point. Such a good point. Your customer will actually tell you what they want.
Yeah.
They will tell you what they need. If they say it and you just brush right over it, shame on you. Right. Shame on you. Yeah. Because they're telling you. In my SaaS business, I very early on, there was the language that I was using to sell was very close to being spot on, but it was not my customer's exact language. So I was talking to them, having these conversations, and I think that it was piquing their interest, but it wasn't that's exactly what we need. So it wasn't that yet. So I had a conversation with someone who actually became one of our advisors now, but I had a conversation with him. He had a lot of experience in working in innovation at a company that was actually one of my targets. And I didn't say a whole lot during this call. This is prior to him becoming an advisor. This is him actually looking at our product to give us advice and then to potentially think of it for the customer. So consider it for his employer. So he was taking a look at what we had, and it was very early. And he said, well, I like this. Something that we do that I think this fits into is this. And he started to say how they communicate amongst each other. And the words, I just got, my notepad was full. I just started to write the exact words down. And I was like, but you said, I said, well, when I think of that, I say this, but it seems like this is more related to this. And he even began going into detail of how they run a particular meeting and the lingo that they use to run this meeting. And it was so powerful, guys. It was amazing. I took my notepad after that. I changed our entire website. In one night, I just changed our entire website, all of the copy, and just the next few conversations I had, it made sense. It even helped me in my in discovering how I needed to communicate in terms of my marketing. So I had been researching the wrong terms. Once I started to use his language in my term search, it was like a world of articles. I found all of these competitors. I found just, and my mind was just completely blown. I changed the way I was communicating to my team. I said, "Hey guys, we've been looking at this all wrong, and it's my fault. Let's just wipe everything out and let's do it like this." And it started making a lot more sense. So just the power of allowing your customer to tell you what the problem is and what they actually need, how they speak, how they communicate with each other, especially if they are an influencer in the space. So let's say you're speaking to a large company that has a very great reputation. They influence that space. So if they say something a certain way, many companies say it just that way. It is gold. It is gold. So yeah, take note of that. Listen very closely, and it will save you so much time. It also influenced my product roadmap as well, because I figured out that instruction for note he made about how they run this particular meeting. I added another feature to our product that aligned with what he was saying, and that solved the problem better than how they were trying to do it, because he also told me what they were running into. So that just came from me asking questions and doing a lot less talking. And at the end of that call, my mind immediately went to, he needs to advise me. Not necessarily that I need to have him be, my, customer, or I need to keep following up with him in that way, because that type of insight can get me so many customers. And now that advisor actually helps me get customers. So that is one of my success stories. I hope you guys see the power in just listening. So it looks like Cheryl has something.
There's so much there. So can I just say, don't jump over the fact that Kiara was talking about taking notes. I have to say, I'm a note taker, probably most of us are, but if you are not a note taker, do all that you can to become a note taker, because what you write down, first of all, they say the pen is a recorder of the mind. So I know I remember things better if I write it down, but beyond that, you'll see things later that you kind of outlined in just taking notes, and you'll go, I could circle things and go, they said this 4 times in our conversation, right? I'll highlight things and go, this was the gist of it. Or sometimes I see the essence of the solution based on the conversation. And I'm like, they're looking for reliability, right? Or they're looking for safety in their decision-making, right? Based on the conversation. So notes, somewhere you alluded to, I will say being agile, obviously, right? As a startup, I mean, to say I changed my whole website overnight, right? Those are the things you do. You hear the answer and you say, oh, wait, I've got to do this differently. So kudos to that. And then the third thing that I would say is, literally, as you were talking, I was just thinking about how just understanding the overall is so important, and seeing the opportunity that he could be an advisor. So a lot of times we go into sales and we're like, got this one thing I got to do. I got to go get the sale. I got to get the sale. But you're missing the broader scope of it, where this person is providing this information and providing perspective, and they're really giving, and they could be a perfect advisor for you versus, I got to go get the sale, right? So just looking at the overall landscape of the situation and really understanding where the value points are for not only them, but for you in partnership and or clientship, if that's a word. So yeah, there was so much there that, just your note taking alone. I was like, yeah, because if you didn't take notes, how are you going to change your website, right? How are you going to be agile and jump in and change your website?
Yes. Just so another thing, a note that I made of a question that someone asked us from our Slack group, which you're not in our Slack group. What are you even doing in life? You need to be, it's right. Free. Yeah. You need to be in our Slack group. But someone asked me, what is the point of beta testing? Mm-hmm. And I get it. Oh my God, I get it. It's just so much. What's the insights that I need to take from it? But guys, testing is about profitability. Mm-hmm. It's not, I know when you think of profitability, you think of money in hand. That's what you think. But being able to iterate something like a software product early with a sales mindset. So if I change this thing about my product, it is going to get me more customers. If I perfect it, it's really going to get me more customers. If I can get the insight that I need now, about what my customer dislikes about my product, then I can make the changes now and they'll buy more readily. They'll, continue that I'll have that recurring revenue. They'll continue paying because I solved their problem, by just making those changes at the beginning. That's what I discovered. I did not pitch him to buy our product right away because what he showed me was that there were changes I needed to make in my product right away that would give me more customers. And I was totally okay with that. Completely okay with making sure I made the changes I needed to so that I can get customers, even a month or so, however long it took for me to get that right down the line. I didn't even care if my team got mad at me. They did a little bit. They did a little. But it was just, this is what we need to do. This is what will help us get to the step we need to way down the line, the milestone we need to hit way down the line. I need to make that change now. And I know I said beta testing, but you should always, in these early stages, it is always about profitability. Mm-hmm. It is always about what do I need to do now that will make me more profitable? What questions do I need to ask? What insights do I need to gain so that I can be profitable? And going back to what I said earlier, you are not just building a product that will succeed. You are building a business.
Right.
And if you don't know all of the ins and outs, then you'll launch a product in the market and notice that it's not doing well. Mm-hmm. I can keep going. I know we're coming up on the hour, but another thing is I was speaking to someone just the other day and looking at their product actually, and they were going on and on about how they have something that no one else has. Just, this is a unicorn product. It's amazing. And they said it multiple times and I wasn't going to correct them, but they just kept on saying it. And I finally just said, I need you to understand that saying that about your product this early on just means that you have no market. Mm-hmm. It just means there's no market for your product and that you're going to have a very hard time and that you're going to have to execute your go-to-market strategy very, very well. That's all that means. So, and I'm saying that story to say that you have to do the initial steps early. You have to make sure that you are building something that is going to last, and you have to think, even in the building process, that you are building something for a market, not that you are building something that is just, oh, this is awesome, this is the next Facebook. Because the only reason that Facebook succeeded is because of their well-executed marketing strategy, their go-to-marketing strategy. They targeted one university at a time. they got the traction by targeting actually pretty large universities, and they just one at a time. That's how they blew up. It was well executed, so well executed. So if you are building something that you think no one else is building, I would argue that you haven't done enough research, because you do have competitors, and having competitors is a good thing. That means that there is market for your business, and that you can glean from them. I'm not opposed. I mean, website's public, guys. I'm not opposed. No anyone just going out, looking at what they're building, gleaning from that, go and look at the forums, see what users are actually saying about their product. How can you improve yours? Talk to their users if you can. If you can get on a call or get in a group with people who are their users, and I'm not saying directly sell to them out of the gate, because that may become annoying to them. I'm saying ask them questions, say that you're building something similar and that you want insight. I said a bunch. Cheryl, did you have something?
No, this is just, it's just exceptional just to understand their complexities, and there is a process. You're not reinventing the wheel. So there's plenty of ways you can learn. You could come in and get an evaluation with us. You could be in our Slack channel. You can just follow us and learn more. You could attend these on a weekly basis. But at the end of the day, you're not recreating everything in a vacuum. There are success leaves crumbs, and so does failure. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Paul, did you have anything you want to add? I'm going to also check for questions.
So, I've been listening to the dialogue and everything that everyone's been sharing. And, I'm thinking about, like, me is the sales not the seller, and how I feel when I'm being sold to. And it happens all the time, like I'll be looking at a product online for my business, and I can't get pricing statistics. I can't get, I can't touch, the product, even if it's like a SaaS product. I can't demo it and run through it myself, So, well, you got to sign up for our demo, the company says, and then we'll have an account executive or one of our people reach out to you, right? So I'm going to have to schedule a time out of my very, very busy schedule to sit through basically a sales call. No thanks. So I just move on, like, look, I want to know how much it's going to, I'm interested in the product, but I'm not, as a first time mover on the product. Like, I'm not so interested, especially when, like, if I'm searching for a product for my business, there's probably like a multitude of competitors. I'll just go to someone else, or I'll figure out another way. I just don't have time to be sold to. So give me the pricing up front and let me, go through a trial or test out the product, to see if it fits my needs, right, as a business. So that's number one. And then, number two, you don't have to be like a great salesperson. As a matter of fact, you can completely screw up the entire sales pitch. Like, you can just completely butcher it. But if you've built a relationship and you've addressed the need, if you've listened, but maybe in your pitch you were stumbling across your words, or you just weren't astute, you can still like win that customer over. And a lot of it has to do with, quite honestly, authenticity. So I had someone come, so I'm an AI venture capitalist, right? And, we're selling to other people's money. We're saying, hey, invest in our VC firm so we can be your fiduciary and deploy and allocate your capital to, companies in the AI space. And I literally had someone come to me and say, but usually like AI venture capitalists are like, very technical, AI fund managers, usually they're like, technical subject matter experts. Well, it's kind of semantics, because what really is an expert? I've never been a subject matter technical expert, but I've been an operational technologist, and so when you're selling your product or your offering, don't think about necessarily what it is that you lack, but focus on your strong points and build on those, leverage those, exploit those, right? And so me as an AI venture capitalist, my thing is, okay, where the market is in AI right now, it's really driven at the policy level. Like, a lot of funding for AI happens at the policy, the government decision-making level. And I have a background in DLD. I've been working with AI systems and robotics or subsets of AI for many years, in terms of deploying them and using them, in various utilities and scenarios. That doesn't mean I'm going into engineering, the technologies, right? So in a way, okay, I'm not a technical subject matter, but I'm an operational subject matter expert. And I can use that to my strong point, because most emerging fund managers don't have expansive DoD experience like I do, right? They don't have that global experience, that operational experience of bootstrapping companies. And that's really the gap that I fill. So focus on your strong points. And, one of the things that differentiates me, say, for example, as an AI venture capitalist, is that I'm a thought leader. I'm a personal branding expert. So, when I talk about AI, I'm not just talking about it from AI and the gift wrapping application of it, right? But I'm actually talking about it based on my own experiences and based on the experiences that I've had, like in the DoD sector as a corporate executive and as an entrepreneur. So I can use, and really at the end of the day, a venture capitalist's job is not to go and build the technologies. Venture capitalists, they invest in the companies that are building them. A venture capitalist is a fiduciary expert within a specific field. And so, okay, where I may lack from a technical subject matter expertise in the field of AI, then we have advisors that fill those gaps for us, right? And so when you're thinking about kind of like a RACI matrix and a skill, a team comprehensiveness in terms of skill base, and where you can, like where and how you can sell the benefits and the advantages of your product, but not just your product, your team. Think about how your team fits together into the entire sales solution, right? And leverage your personal brand and your background and authenticity, but also be highly consultative when you're selling or when you're building relationships, that when the buyer looks at your company or they look at your business and they see, okay, so I'm going to buy this product, but how are you going to support me, right? Then they can see that you really have the infrastructure, the manpower, the staff to support, them from a customer service standpoint, from a Q&A standpoint, so that they can get the most out of a product or the solution that they're potentially going to be buying from you. For example, if I were to buy an iPhone versus an Android, right? Say like an Android from the Samsung store versus an iPhone from the Apple store, I probably would buy the Samsung, even though I'm an iOS advocate. I would probably buy the Samsung if the Apple Store did not have the consultative infrastructure, staff infrastructure. So then when I have problems with my iPhone, there's no one that I can go to, right? Either a technical person or more of an operational person that can tell me, the business, what business opportunities may exist. If I wanted to purchase a bunch of iPhones for my business, how can having an iPhone make my business more capable? How can my employees having an iPhone make my business more capable? So does Apple have that team infrastructure from a consultative standpoint to help me work through those questions and potential technical problems that may arise? And if they don't, you know what? Even though I don't like Samsung, I'm probably going to go with Samsung, right? Even though I don't like Android, I'm probably going to go with Android and Samsung. So think about that. Think about building your personal brand when you're selling and trying to develop relationships, and think about what your strong areas are. And as you're building your personal brand, continue to build on your strong areas, compound on those. And for the areas that maybe you don't have as much experience, fill those gaps in your organization.
Good point. Really good point. I haven't seen any questions in the chat, and I know people have them. So if you are watching this, I will drop the link for our group, for our Slack group for founders, in the chat so that you can come and ask us more questions following this call, because I know there are tons. And there's so much that we can't wrap into a call like this. There's just so much when it comes to sales. But I hope you guys were able to grasp at least some nuggets to get you started on your journey, and understanding how to navigate those early conversations, how to leverage them. I think we spoke a lot to how to take advantage of the early conversations that you have and implement changes early, and even understanding, so you're not just changing your product, you're also changing your sales. How I mentioned earlier, iterating your sales motion, you're actually changing how you approach a customer every time. You're learning through each conversation, what is the best way for me to approach this market. One other thing that I want to make certain that I add, just because I've had so much, this has helped me so much. So if you are marketing or if you are communicating to an industry, don't be afraid to just or don't think that it's a waste of time to just completely engulf yourself in that industry. Just learn what is the things that people, so I target the manufacturing industry for my SaaS business. And when I began targeting them, now I do have a co-founder who has a manufacturing background, but I did not have one. So I quickly realized I was going to be the person doing most of the selling. So I needed to be able to speak their language. I needed to be able to identify with them. And I needed to understand what was influencing them. So there was already things in the market that was influencing them, like Lean Six Sigma, like so many things, so many lean topics, so many. There was, even all of the methodology that comes with how Toyota operates. Toyota is a big influencer in the manufacturing space. Those types of things, just the information is all over. Some things are paid, some things are free. But what I had the opportunity to do is go out, look for all of the free resources, and then realize that people are ready to have chats with you. You can just get on a call, and this isn't a sales related call. You don't necessarily, get on calls, maybe always with an angle. So I'm not definitely looking for this person to be a partner. I want a friend. I want someone who is very experienced in the things that I am not, and they can just teach me. I was just on a call not long ago with a lady who I just listened to the entire time. I was like, oh, okay, and what else? And well, what do you mean by that? And she's like, I think at one point she said something like, well, I don't think you're going to get all you need in this. And she's like, well, this is how we see this. And I said, oh, well, this is how I see it. Well, can you go more into depth about exactly? And those types of insights, they make you, they make you more informed, and you can have more confidence when you're communicating to your customer. You can feel more, when you write things, let's say in your marketing, when you write things, you can come from a more depth in your perspective about a topic. If you understand how the market already thinks about a topic, and you have a completely different perspective because you haven't been immersed in that industry, that is awesome. I actually, in my corporate life, I was in HR mostly. So coming into a space where they have difficulty communicating to employees, I was like, oh, my perspective is a lot different. My perspective is this. And I could kind of formulate my own methodology, and people were open to listen. Because it was highlighting the things that they had already heard, but it was coming with a perspective that they hadn't heard. So now I can be a thought leader in the space. So really just immerse yourself in whatever industry it is that you're targeting. And that goes for B2B, that goes for B2C as well. Have as many conversations as you can, and don't think I can't speak to this person. I mean, I've had conversations with my competitors. Just speak to people, just talk to people, and you never know what you're going to learn. And always be very quick to apply the things that you learn. So be agile. Just as quickly as you learn it, how can I apply this right now? And if you become that student within this thing that you are building, this startup that you are building, I guarantee you will succeed. Even if it takes you a while, you will succeed. One of those conversations is going to spark something that is going to lead to another thing, that is going to lead to a slew of things, and you will succeed. You just have to get out there. You have to dive in. You have to do research. So I think that is a good point to close on, unless you guys have something to add.
Value fresh eyes, as you mentioned. So there's a value for having fresh eyes and coming from the outside, and then loop back and report on what you did to the people that inspired you, because those will be the relationships that will continue to grow. If you actually loop back to them and say, you said this, I did this, it inspired me, and this is what the result was. So I love all of these examples. They're phenomenal.
Awesome. Awesome. Anything else? I think, no, it's been wonderful.
Keep going.
Yes.
Something else. Keep going.
Yes, don't stop. Yes. Anything else, Paul? No, you're all good.
No, that's it. I enjoyed the call. Yeah, everything's good.
All right.
Awesome. Yep. Well, we will see you guys on our next week's call. Go ahead and sign up, ask some questions. We'll chat soon.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye-bye.